good evening, everyone, and welcome back to The Social Pillar. How is everyone? Good evening. Hello, chat. Hello, everyone tuning in. How is everyone? We're back.
Benefit
Ian.
being here with you two.
Yeah, glad to be here. Ian, do you want to
I'm so
take it
glad to
away?
be here. We then sit here in awkward silence.
We're just going
So
to
happy to be here. I want to enjoy
start a conversation.
The vibes.
Yes. Just take it. Let's all just take a breath.
I'm good. I'm good. I am there pressing some buttons. I pressed my buttons.
Okay.
I am well.
Nice.
Yes.
All right.
Always a pleasure. Hi. 100% focused on the here and now. I am present. I am content. I am connected. I am hearing my dog chew on his snack in the background.
Hey, Dan Dog.
Hey, Dan Dog.
Hey. Awesome.
But yeah,
Oh, it's
how are
looking
you?
good. Good to see you both. Yeah, I'm good. I'm very well. And thanks, Jared, for the intro and for leading us in for tonight, because it's good to be here. I'm not going to be here next week, so I'm looking forward to this for tonight and what we can talk about here. In fact, for the next 2 sessions, I'll be gone, so I'm going to get everything I can out of this.
Nice.
So, Jared, how are you, and what do we got tonight?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. We are basically taking off from last week where we were talking about sort of all the important things that you need to talk about when gathering a group of people, and more specifically for tabletop role playing. But now we want to talk about like the meat of the game. What are we diving into
protein
specifically?
of the game.
Yeah, the substance, the gravitas, the whole song and dance. We're talking about all the elements that come together when you're actually creating a campaign, whether it's homebrew, whether you're trying to pick a module to run through, whether you're trying to pick a system. We just want to talk about all of those things because we are curating our own experience with an AI GM this Sunday for a cozy stream.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness, that's exciting.
We can really learn from what we're about to discuss this evening because it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to explore this, and we want to hear from you guys what you guys think, what your experiences are. So we're live now on Twitch,
Yes.
but after the fact, leave the comments on YouTube and all of that good stuff as well. So
Absolutely.
I think we dive into it, but
we doing?
of course,
Yeah.
before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the that we are coming to you from
Oh, yeah.
Aboriginal land. I'm coming to you from Karingai land. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're streaming to you from and pay our respects to elders past and present. So thank you everyone for tuning in, wherever that's from. And I want to talk about all the key elements for defining the vision of a campaign, like not worrying about rules and character sheets and all of that stuff just yet. Effectively, every good campaign, I think, could benefit from an elevator pitch. So I throw it to you, Ian. What would you say, in your experiences, would be a good elevator pitch? Like, what makes a good elevator pitch? What are we trying to convey when it comes to like a tabletop role-playing game?
Yeah, that's a good question. The idea of an elevator pitch, anyway, for anyone out there who's going, what are they talking about? Sounds very
Well, let's
businessy.
define that first, shall we?
Sounds terribly businessy.
It
Yes.
sounds well. Basically, it's kind of it's like, how do you tell people? It's like there's an adage Einstein has used: if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And I completely agree. It's like it's your vision of a game. So it's like the elevator pitch, or something that you can explain in one sentence, maybe up to 10 words or something, that really sells this to the players that you're with. Now, of course, that's not necessarily easy to do, and it's like, especially if it's something new and exciting, but if you can find things that you've got this great game that you've picked up, and if you can associate it with things, maybe pop culture references or something, or some way that people will identify with a game that you really want to play, it makes it really easy then for people to go, oh, I see what you mean. Oh, that sounds cool. Or, oh, that sounds good, but it's probably, I don't know if that's me. And it's good because at least they go, like, at least this is what we're kind of aiming for. So I wanted to give it as an example. And I'd love to hear yours because I just thought of this one that I'm preparing for is when Wizards of the Coast brought out Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, I didn't know much about it, but literally, I think someone literally said this is like Mad Max in the Hells, in the Nine Hells. And I was like, And literally, it was the year Mad Max had come out, or the year after it, or something. Fury Road, and you can see when you read through it, you go, "Yeah, I get it." And they really did this. And I thought, wow, a fantasy campaign with kind of Mad Max, and you got running around things. It's like, that sounds awesome. So I get it, and that makes sense. And the kind of, not just the visuals of, the kind of dust and the kind of like apocalyptic kind of feel to everything, but also there's that sense of, there's just this little bit of hope, and possibly something can come out of it if people work together and against the domination of all this thing. And it's really great. That's an elevator pitch. Something like Mad Max meets the Nine Hells. That's a really extreme one. What do you guys have, like, ideas for elevator pitches that you think?
I have a question before we get into elevator pitches, not just because maybe I haven't thought of one. Why would we need an elevator pitch for tabletop gaming? Where would we use this? Or where would you guys use this?
Great question. Jared, do you want to start, or do you want me to jump in?
I guess it would be kind of the seed of the whole narrative, the whole world building. If you break an elevator pitch maybe down into exactly that, what's the setting? You could say Mad Max meets, a hellscape. I've heard it as Constantine. He deals with hell and all of that sort of stuff, or Hellboy, dealing with all of these sort of devils and demons and all of that sort of thing. So that immediately gives people context. And so you can then add things onto that in terms of, okay, well, what's the realism like? Are we doing, high fantasy, for example? So you could stipulate specifically that it is high fantasy with these sort of themes that you'd be familiar with to give you context. And then you can always add on what the genre is, I guess, in terms of, is it a mystery, or is it, exploring old and ancient things? So you can tag on things that we're going to be talking about, and assemble your elevator pitch, because then it defines, everybody's on the same page in terms of what they can expect in a broad brushstroke, I guess.
When we say everybody, I was thinking is like, for me, when I'm doing something like this, it's either the group that I'm playing with or a group that I'm currently engaging with, that we're like, we're looking to do a new game, or they want to pitch something to all of us and say, like, someone in the group and says, hey, look, I've got this really great game. This is like someone, one of my great group at the moment said, we'd be keen in doing Honey Heist. And they're like, what's that? And it's like, it's a one shot where you all play bears and you're tossing up between becoming a real good heist thief who, like Ocean's 11, but you'll turn on the group, compared to being a primal bear and you just can't help eating honey or just, attacking things or something. That sounds great. And so it's something really, I love what Perdicious said, hi to chat and hi to Perdicious in there. It is like that one thing you can say to your group or a group you're going to engage with, in the length of an elevator ride, which is where the elevator pitch came in. So it's like literally something within about 30 seconds you can talk to somebody about. So for me, I'd say it to people that I'm about to play with, actually, and want to sell an idea for it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, sounds like you use it to get people on the same floor, same mindset. Kind of like that, what was that initial expectation setting? Is that kind of the way you guys both use it? Because it sounded, Jared, the way you use it is also just kind of almost start shaping your creative process when running the games.
I would say everything can stem from that. In the current Spelljammer module that was published, they said it's very much sort of Flash Gordon. They actually give you the homework, go and watch Flash Gordon. It's heavily inspired by that. Cool. And then the obvious thing is, it's so easy to give, even if it's not part of an elevator pitch, you can just say, okay, well, we're doing Treasure Planet, the animated film. It's very much, it's going to be more like that than it is like Flash Gordon or whatever your version is going to be. Mine's basically Stargate. It's my excuse to run all the sci-fi things I've always wanted to do. So
nice.
and I always even with each session that I run, that can have an elevator pitch, because they're doing big exploration. They're in a spelljamming ship flying through the astral seas, off out there, lots of weird things, and each thing's very episodic. So I have said, okay, next thing that you encounter, is everyone okay with space horror, a la Alien? It's going to be weird, creepy, slimy, super gross. Is everyone okay with that? So like that's me doing my healthy check-in thing, but at the same time, laying down
Yeah.
a narrative already,
expectations
for sure.
and narrative, but expectations of story, but also kind of the structure of how it'll play. It sounds like
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and it's like a teaser at the end. Yeah, it's literally
Yeah,
like
or
a teaser at the end of an episode, or a clip. You know, it's almost they can go in expecting something more contextual rather than what could we be doing this night. They could be looking forward to it, etc. They can be. I know because my players have they have a group chat of their own that I'm not a part of, so they're going to be talking about it, and I love to set them up with that.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a tool that you use for kind of ongoing campaigns, but for episodes, but also to kind of hook people in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll be honest, I probably do it a little bit, more so in like Discord service when I'm putting out calls for games, and it's just a quick paragraph.
Yeah.
Because I do put out, a fortnightly call for game, this is what we're playing. I'm just trying to now, actually gives me an idea. I can actually give you one of my elevator pitches as I look sideways to my Discord.
Here we go.
And,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, as you're grabbing that, I'll and so you can announce it. It reminds me of the one that I did for my current gaming group, which has been for nearly 2 years now that we've been building on this chapter of our group's game. Was specifically, this is going to be Firefly TV series, if you know it, mixed with Princess Mononoke. Fantasy of that. That's what I'm going to do.
That sounds amazing.
And so, and they're like,
amazing.
"Oh wow, what's that?" And I was like, "We'll see." They get the basics of it.
Yeah.
And like, if you know anything about those, you get the kind of sensibilities about it and the kind of characters. You're going to have the kind of encounters that they're kind of looking forward to. That's the thing. It's just trying to find a way to, how do you summarize it simply? Like you said, Thea, in a paragraph, like, hey, this is what's coming up. Did you find it? Did you get?
Yeah, you did. So let's go. Hang on, wait, I have found it.
I feel like
find out what
maybe an elevator pitch.
Stolen from banking guilds and stop the thieves before they manage to smuggle it out.
There you go.
Excellent.
Bam.
Yeah.
No, that's clean. Like that's super clean.
Yeah.
And that's super plot forward, and it's already giving you so many like ideas and like how to think, how to feel, what kind of it is priming people. It's a common sort of social engineering technique where you sort of say to people, "Oh, you won't believe how funny this thing was that just happened to me," and you get all giddy and you change your body language and people go, what? And then it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to think it's hilarious. So it's kind of like that, like you prime people, and I feel like that creates more immersion in the long run. So if you add this into your routine, absolutely. We should probably dive into some more sort of nuts and bolts of it. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add?
I was thinking as well, if anyone looks into like Collecticon or conventions, that kind of thing, that little brief that each of the games have is kind of like a pitch, because it's giving you a sense of, here's the style, this is the kind of game and what the hook is, but also this is the system that you're going to play and level and blah, blah, blah. So it's very
You've just reminded me I need to make mine now. Yeah, absolutely.
What else should we talk about?
I mean, to assemble that, I guess we can just quickly kind of run over these key elements I wanted to talk about, which is like we've touched on a lot of them, but just to kind of define them, diving into the concept of the genre. So obviously genre choice is most likely going to affect tone and theme. So, the Firefly gives you, kind of like space piratey themes, and then Mononoke gives you sort of environmental themes and how the culture is and other things like that. You're a blessed human being.
Legend Hatter.
Thank you so much.
Shout out to Hatter.
Thank you for the gift. And I've got a little dinosaur animation apparently. I don't know when I did that.
So
I do apologize to everyone's names getting cut off. Bless.
Oh my goodness.
Goodness
Thank
gracious.
You didn't have to do that, but we appreciate it.
That's incredible.
Very
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you. They just keep chiming. This is surreal.
Yeah, they're just going to keep going.
Well, I'll
That is
just
wonderful.
thank you, my dude. So genre, like exactly that, tone and themes similar with Spelljammer. I'm saying it's like Treasure Planet, that gives you visuals, that gives you how things work. We've even said they have a little skiff that works like, the little sort of ski rocket thing that he has, the sort of wind sail thing. And like even mechanics, like all the way down to sometimes they can harvest solar wind and stuff like that. It's a whole thing. The spectrum of styles. So are we doing? I guess like the 3 pillars is what most campaigns would lean into. Like, are you doing? And it fluctuates. Yeah, like social exploration, role play. I guess that's kind of where you'd lean into.
Yeah, that's a good thing to talk about too, because that also gives a sort of expectation for people. If you set up at the beginning, look, this game's going to be heavy on the role play side of it. We might not do as much combat, for example, in this particular game. And it might not be so much exploration. Or it's exploration, but more of the social dynamics and what's happening in this group of people that you're meeting or something. Whereas if you have another game that could be like, this is a heavy run into places, fight things, traps, you name it, dungeon crawl kind of thing, then you know what to expect in terms of those pillars as well. You can kind of give it a scale.
For sure.
Do you guys do that as well? Kind of like look at the different scales for the pillars to help kind of give people a guide?
Yeah,
consciously or unconsciously, I think.
Yeah, I would say I probably do it more in an unconscious way, in that I tend to try and run. I think I tend to, for my one-shots or interconnected one-shots, I think I tend to try and balance, because I have quite a diverse range of players. So I know that some of them will like role play, so I want to have some role play elements. Some of them will like combat. I want some combat elements, and also some of them like puzzles and trying to solve things. So I try to have all of those. I will say that probably the one that drops off first would be puzzles. Also because they take the most work. For me, the way my brain works, trying to put puzzles together or find puzzles, etc., takes the most work for me. But whereas combat is fairly easy to run and role play is relatively easy to run, at least for me, with sort of the background and habits that I've got. But yeah, I think it's for me, it's about balance, but I don't tend to run campaigns. And thank you, Purdy. I do enjoy assignmenting. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
It's funny you said that too, because I feel like the genre thing helps with that, because it's like if you say you want to do like a film noir detective story, you know, there's going to be a lot of investigation. There may be some puzzles that come into it and very much social, but there may be some combat there too. And people kind of get that sense of it. So genre is a nice little hook to get people onto this is the kind of different levels that we'll be playing at and set those expectations again.
And I think it actually works as a creative prompt as well. So, you know, if I think that I want to run some kind of heist, like the example that I read out, then that gives me an idea of a direction. Whereas if it's something more, I say I'm going to run, I don't know, let's think of an Incredibles kind of thing, then it's going to be combat. Sure. It's going to be BBEGs. It's going to be quips and that kind of fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, loving that. We can also talk about like rules and how like what system obviously is a big component, because D&D 5th edition is traditional medieval fantasy. It's very rooted in Tolkien and all of that really hardcore founded fantasy world, which is so beautiful, and it's its own incredible spectrum of diverse cultures and races and worlds, and it's amazing. That's why it's so widespread. But then if you want to run maybe a pulpy cyberpunk sort of a game, you could run Cyberpunk 2077, Cyberpunk Red, Shadowrun, etc. There's lots of other options out there as well, so that has an immediate massive impact. So I mean, Ian, you've run Call of Cthulhu quite a bit. Obviously, that is engineered as well for horror, having run Alien as well, engineered for horror mechanically, with stress and paranoia and all of that sort of stuff. So, have you guys, and then like homebrew rules, you know? Yeah,
that reminded me of something funny. It's funny you said about Call of Cthulhu, because for me, there's a good mate of mine, he's Corey, he's going to be running Call of Cthulhu for Collecticon very soon, which is great.
Very exciting.
But he actually had set up a game with a group of friends that I joined actually later on. But the way he had pitched it with them was they like Call of Cthulhu, except on a long-term game, it's kind of depressing because you don't win. And it's just you're going to die or go insane. So it's like he said, well, look, I want to pitch it differently. And he's going to use some of that rule set, but he also used some of the kind of D20 modern which is from 3.5, D&D 3.5. But particularly it added a couple of other things in there, which included specifically hit locations if you get hit, which means you could lose use of an arm, or you might be blinded or something like this.
Yeah.
So he said, and the reason was it's not going to have the horror element so much. He wanted it to be more like Raiders of the Lost Ark, pulpy, adventure-y stuff from the 30s where there are eldritch horrors, but you guys are capable of actually fighting them. So there was less of that.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, like Indiana Jones, that sounds fun. And, so that played for years just on that kind of pitch too, because it also had a rule set that he was kind of clear, I want to use a bit of this, but I'm going to use a bit of that so that we know.
Oh, I love that.
And that helps, yeah. So you can mix it up a bit to say, this is the kind of rules I want to use to fit this kind of genre as well.
Yeah.
That's
Excuse me one second. Dean Dog is doing some destructive dog actions.
By all means. Yeah, absolutely. We've covered a lot of things. I think we might have touched on sort of game length last week as well. Not only how long is a session and how how frequently and all of those sorts of things. I wanted to talk about also like how long are you running a campaign for? Do you put an ideal sort of time frame? Do you only have so much real world time and you're trying to plot out, an entire sort of season effectively of a campaign? Things like that. There's so many things to factor in. And then obviously if it's a long-term thing, you would really, really hope that everybody knows and can be fairly confident that they can commit to very regular sessions over an extended period of time. Maybe there isn't so much pressure if, you're going to be playing for so long to try and be there every week. Whereas if you play less frequently, perhaps there's more pressure. If you do monthly, if you miss 1 week, do you then start on the next week, or is it always the last Sunday of the month, or is it, so in my experience, that is always something that could and should be covered, like in a session 0 more so than all of this. But again, like if you're curating a campaign all the way down from a one shot could have an elevator pitch, and so could an arc of 10 sessions, or the current direction the game is going. And once you've completed one arc and defeated the big BBEG, why not keep those characters and do a whole new adventure? Like that's totally an option as well. So.
And I think that's something that's interesting as well when we're talking about kind of game length and the commitment that you're asking from people, is that can change. Because a lot of what we're talking about here seems to be sitting in that setting expectations. But what's really important is that we acknowledge that life changes. Things will happen. People, and this is something that I've noticed a lot on some of the notice boards, people looking for games, is that I want to join a campaign. And that's great. But I sometimes wonder whether people think about what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to play every week. Okay, you want to play every week. Now, what if things come up? I mean, looking in our chat, we have people that have assignments due. We have life happening that is going to impact. Yeah. So have you ever had to have conversations, again, because you are the campaign Pillarites? Pillarites is now a thing.
I love that because you're like a one-shotter, so it's kind of different, isn't it? It's like...
It's different. So for me, when I talk length of games, I try to set expectations. Hey, guys, we're going to play for... It's about a 3-hour game. Whereas if you've got people joining a campaign, it's like, hey, how long is this campaign going to go? Am I committing? Am I getting married to you guys? Is this a lifetime commitment? For me, not so much.
Yeah,
Jared, have you done it before?
Yeah.
Have you pitched it for a certain space of time?
Like, not so much. Not in the. I've always planned to run campaigns, set that expectation. We're doing a module for the most part. We're doing a published module. There is the expectation to kind of come in and say it. It's never really been voiced, which is something I'm now going to add to my repertoire, which is like, do you guys have intentions of, moving? Like, are you finishing studying and then getting a job, et cetera, et cetera? Like, obviously you don't, it's not about like prying or anything. It's just about what could come up in your future, because I currently have groups with different ages, people who have very intense jobs. I have people in different time zones, and there you can obviously relate with that as well. And we all just have to juggle our lives, and sometimes knowing where the ball's going to be can help us catch those things and fumble them effectively, not drop them. So when we know people are going on holidays,
Quinn makes a really good point talking about life comes first. And I know that Quinn's running a game that's been going for a very long time with a really great bunch of players.
Awesome.
And it gets, things come up and you aren't always going to be playing, even running the one-shots. I've had a few things going on where I haven't had the free time. So we haven't been running, and it's interesting to have those kind of conversations with your players, because you're right, Jared, we don't talk about this a lot in session 0. It's kind of something that I think a lot of us could probably talk about more. And it was interesting the way you were talking then. Like, I'm a bit of a commitment phobe. You may have picked this up, but even when, Jared, you were saying, is it what's going on in life? Do you think things are going to change? I could feel my little commitment hackles going, this is sounding like a relationship. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. They're not necessarily going to be comfortable conversations. Not everybody is going to be so transparent, and nor should they have to be. That's not a requirement or a prerequisite
Well, they might
for
not
joining.
even know, right?
Well, that's the other thing that's the thing. Unforeseen things is obviously one thing, but just as my example, if you're finishing uni and potentially moving into a career or an apprenticeship or an internship, that could change. I've just had the wonderful Sim, who's been on the show. He's just changed jobs. Our session time starts half an hour later. Big deal. Not a big deal. I've just had one player in Japan for a couple of weeks. They've been back for about 2 weeks. We still haven't played. Everyone is just so eager to get back into it. So, we don't worry about the small stuff. We are committed to a campaign. We can wrap it up at any time.
You said the C word.
That's good. That's the expectation you have too, that you've got that expectation with the group that it can just continue for as long as it needs to, and we'll get to it when we get to it.
I've had players commit more to their personal lives and relationships and leave this game because
I think that's the important thing. We've got to make it okay for that to happen.
It's so wonderful.
Sometimes I think people can feel very guilty and get themselves tied into knots about, I don't want to let this campaign, I don't want to let people down. I think as a GM, it's really important that we make that okay for people to do that.
100%. This is the perfect place to do that, because what does that even mean in terms of letting people down? Unless you were the absolute, if you were the life of the party and if everyone, maybe, but even then that's a bit selfish to try and keep a person to yourself. But is it a mechanical thing? Oh, the party's now dropped from 5 to 4. How will they ever get through this terrible arena battle they're lined up for next week?
Oh no.
Just a bit of foreshadowing. That doesn't matter, because a good game master should just scale it. You always curate for the group you have, not the group you wish you had, not for the group you had last week, not for the one player who's not there. It's adaptive, it's improvisational at its foundation, which we've touched on. So there's no need to worry about that. And we just thank you for the time that you've been with us. It really shouldn't be a big deal. And congratulations on whatever you're transitioning into as well, and if you just want to stop, that's fine.
That's absolutely
take a break.
fine.
Go for it. It's all good. We've touched on bringing players into the fold, and we've got a segue, but Ian has a little something he needs to say.
I do. I wanted to address what you brought up about length of time, because it reminded me of the current group I'm with, and two things came up, and one is I got to a point because of life. Thank you, Birdie. Thank you, everyone, as well. This is I was actually quite work laden, and with full-time job plus the running the professional games that I run out of here as well. And I said I need to have a break of about 6 months, because and actually partly it's for me, so I can actually just have some kind of brain space and just let go for a bit, but also because the group, there's some really creative and potential DMs there that I'd love to see them bring their stuff to life. So it was a really good chance for them to have this, and they were like, yes, this sounds great.
For sure.
So they were very supportive of that. Something came out of that though as well, that the long-term game that I've got going on, I started to feel that it's lagging a little bit. Like the story that we're telling, I used to run games, Jared, like yourself, I had a group where we just played until it went to wherever it went. Yeah. And it doesn't seem to be working for these guys in the same way, because it's a bit of a different group that I've been in the last few years. And actually I can see that I'm starting to get that they want an end to this particular thing. So I've got to address it. Yeah, and I'm starting to get that. Actually, that's the next session 0 for 2024 is like, I see you guys really want to actually get to this. I'm going to change the style so that we're actually going to get there and actually just have an ending to it. And so that means you can either continue in a different with a new story or whatever it is. It'll be an end to this story though.
Yeah.
And I think that's good because then it doesn't become a drag. Then it doesn't become over.
It doesn't feel like a grind.
Yeah.
Yep.
It has an outside.
It doesn't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like a chore.
Yeah.
Exactly that with the brain space. I've tried to do that with my Spelljammer game. We've got a big sort of event coming up. They're going to participate in some blood sports. It'll be wonderful. They've had time to ruminate on it, but I've also been able to take a bunch of inspiration from all the other things that I'm doing in my life and all the other creative stuff, and I'm just adding piece by piece to my prep because I really kind of want to make this comeback really spectacular, and it's going to be this massive gladiatorial battle that they're participating in. They don't know how many weapons, they don't know how many participants. It's just there's cool. so much left unsaid. They've just landed on this massive space satellite that is this gigantic arena basically, and they can see all the other races and their unique ships, and they're all just walking across the platforms to this arena, and that's where we left it. So
that's
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's helpful though, isn't it? Just to take that moment to step back and go, okay,
absolutely, taking a step back, enjoying something else. Yeah, but also like enjoying something else as well. You know, we all have, several hobbies and other things that we enjoy to do, different communities that just don't necessarily overlap. So, there's nothing wrong with that. Just celebrating something else as well.
I like the point Purdy made, and sorry if you mentioned it before, my brain briefly shut down, talking about changing up roles, changing up, mixing things up. I think that's really important.
Rotating DMs
freshness in a game. Yeah.
Sure.
It's funny you mentioned roles because that's a topic that may be coming up later this season, specifically about different roles that people play in a group, and that's awesome because it's this. So it's some very clear roles people can take on, but that's right. Yeah.
But
those archetypes, all that good stuff.
Foreshadowing.
You want to hear about that? You're going to have to come back another time.
Do the button somewhere. You can click it. It'll bring you to that thing.
There's a follow button, and you can be notified when we go live and all that fun stuff.
All that good stuff. So natural.
Goodness.
So now straight into part 2 of the evening. We're not straight.
Part 2 of the evening. Wait, what?
Part 2 of the. Oh, hang on. We had a follow. We had a follow.
Hey.
Come back. Thank you.
Come back, 36.
Thank you.
Legend.
He's here. He's here to stay. He will come back. That's great. That was. There we go. We did it. We did.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And talking of players and their roles and their influence on the group, obviously a lot of this could be said from sort of game master perspective, but we have been talking collaboratively. We've been talking about, making sure that what's communicated to the group and to the players is not, and like we've said, players pitching stuff to you. I want to talk about that for a bit because I think always taking in player feedback is a fundamental way that I just run all of my games. I always love to check in and be like, are you guys enjoying this? What are you missing out on? What haven't we done for a while, so that I can always, sort of swerve and navigate through the different pillars for the most part. And then Thea, you reminded me, man, it's been a while since I've thrown a good puzzle at my group, and I know that they like that because the last time I did it, it was intense. There was a little bit of mechanic, like dice rolling, so there was that little bit of what's it going on, and it was just a fun thing that everyone, it was all on one player as well. It was nice and intense. So we want to make sure that the players are actually telling us what they want, because unlike a TV series, we can't Party, too kind. Yeah, unlike a TV series, you can write in, but how, are they really going to, cater to?
So what are some of the things that you actually use to get feedback from your players? And I know we've talked about stars and wishes before, but are there any other little...
No.
But apart from stars and wishes, what are some of the things you might do anecdotally or, on the fly in the elevator?
Yeah. Ian, do you have any? Because I got one.
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's funny, actually, because I was just thinking, man, it's like session 0 is important to establish everything with the players like as a group, so that you establish, okay, this is what it is. You've got to get there first before the session's there. You've got to have that engagement first. At least I do. I have to talk and say, I'm thinking of this game. Got a few things here. How does that sound? And then getting feedback on this. And it's like, what would you want to see? I'm really glad you talked about that kind of, it's the two-way thing. So it's like if I was a player with the DM, I'd be like to say, oh, this sounds great. It's funny, actually, because of the AI game we're looking at for this weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jared, for setting it up too, as well, because of the elevator pitch we had for this, which was remember the 5th of November, the whole thing of trees and treachery and plot behind this. And you had an idea for a character you wanted to be, and what we still haven't worked out a genre, and we'll get there. But it gave some ideas when you put down a character type, and it's like, what do we want to be? And I started thinking, oh, this is the kind of thing I would like. And it's like for any game I've got where I'm engaging with professionally that I'm running for people, or whether it's a one-shot or a series, or if it's for my own group, I'm really starting to see the appeal of, before even a session 0, guys, what do you want? DN Dog, what do you want?
Yeah, DN Dog clearly has some thoughts that he wants to share.
Has some feelings.
Oh, that's it. It's like
absolutely.
that idea of really saying and hearing from them so that you can tailor it, so it's not just one man band. It actually, this is something we're going to play. What would you like to play for an ongoing period of time? If it's 1 session, 6 sessions, or whatever,
for sure.
You want that engaged commitment, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think horror works best as one-shots, for example, or very short bursts, like we've just said with Call of Cthulhu. Funnily enough, because I was just thinking about Alien, and as elegant as the mechanics are, and it's very, very fluid, really, when you start to know what you're doing. It does escalate over a period of time. And how it's actually, there's 2 ways to run it. They've specifically set it up so that they have campaign mode, and I think they call it cinematic mode, which is the one shot, which is the tight-knit capped end experience, and then you run it a certain way. And then when you run it as a campaign, you actually adjust things slightly to curate for that. So, there's definitely something to be said about what do the players actually want? How much time do we have?
Yeah.
Those should be the main sort of guiding factors for the most part. But always sort of just, if you are putting together a group, of course.
Sorry. It came to me.
Go for it.
My thought, which I've rudely interrupted and gone over the top, and just came when I was talking.
He's almost finished. Yeah.
Playing with my dog. I know, but it's treats. So right, I just had to give D and Dog a treat. But how do you reward your players as an ongoing way, as kind of keeping them engaged? What are those things?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because magic items, it's the only way. And funnily enough, when we were saying, do we have any techniques to actually get that feedback? Magic items again, because the thing that I do regularly is I will ask them, what are 3 magic items that you feel would either be perfect for your character, help you in some way, as in like, what are you lacking that you wish you had? What could enhance what you're already trying to build towards mechanically? That's all. Those are the things that I like to ask. So I definitely want to actually curate an experience. I'm not so big on necessarily like backstory and making sure that the characters are necessarily like they're in the world and they are attached to it, and I factor in their backstory, but I'm not about to necessarily. I say that I've literally created Sim's whole backstory because his character has amnesia. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what
actually,
I'm
on
about.
that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I hear that. One of the things that I like to do is actually a little bit different. So my characters will have backstories, even though it's one shots, but I've got sort of a community that all come in. I really try and pull out elements of that character's backstory and just drop them in. For example, we had one character, Voidworm, tiny, what is he? He's small. He's a small character class anyway. He's a gnome who wears robes that are far too big for him, because in the backstory, he stole them from his master. And just randomly, as they're investigating a lab, there's a very familiar voice that comes out of the shadows. It's Voidworm's old master. And that, wasn't anticipated by them, but that's kind of a reward that I'd like to bring in is it's a way of getting my players to come up with ideas about backstory. And people are going to have different views on how much imagination, how much they want to put into that. And that's 100% fine. But pulling out some of those little gems, I find, is a way of really kind of encouraging some of that role play or just getting into that story. And that's something that I found really useful. And I enjoy it as well. I wish I could do it more. Sometimes I think that my creativity gets a bit limited by just trying to do all the things. But that's probably the one that I would say for rewarding players is that I love to do. Is pull out just a little gem or something they've mentioned. Hey, I picked up this hat. I don't know why my players love hats so much, but they do. Picked up this hat. Well, it turns out one of those hats is cursed.
If you keep offering them and they keep taking them, you'll bring them back. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually exactly what I wanted to touch on, which is rewarding the players for obviously building their character. They've come to you with an entire being essentially that does have the history and has intentions and goals and motivations. So there's the story and the narrative side of engineering your plot around that, I guess. But mechanically is probably my most default perspective, because the players are obviously wanting to do certain cool things like blow up buildings with fireballs or swarms of enemies. So if that's what they're trying to achieve, give them those opportunities. So that's how I would say mine is most influenced, is I look at the character sheet and then I read the people, and I like to have ideas of what they get a kick out of. So I call them player kicks. Like, are they mechanically minded? Do they want to do the cool thing? Do they like solving puzzles? Who's playing the bard? What cool weird NPC can I throw in front of them? That's my thinking about world building, and taking what the players have given me fundamentally is their character, who they are portraying.
Yeah, I've had something similar. It's that preparation in bringing just a couple of questions to say, like, what are the like you said, what are the three things you'd really like to do in this game, or have happen in this game or in your character?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's a really good thing because it could be backstory, and it could be like, I really want to find out why I have amnesia. Like you said this as well. Yeah. And it's like, look, don't tell me what it is, but it's like something, make it epic that fits a high fantasy game or something like that. Or it's like, I really want to be able to create magic items and to be able to make those. Or I would really like to eventually one day rule the land. Like, I don't know how, but whatever it is, it's like, I just like hanging out, being just going on adventures and hanging out with good group of guys and telling jokes. And it's like, great. So if you've got that, really helps, I think, if you can find that out from the players that you're about to engage, because then it's then okay, they're looking for this, and then we're going to have to talk about different kind of players in future. That it's actually a key thing. So that how do you engage different types of players as well? But at least asking that question, those three questions, like that probably helps.
That's amazing. I want to get to something that Comeback has brought up. It asked a question about what do you think about dumb magic items, but I actually think that is a really nice way of rewarding players and keeping people engaged as well.
100%.
There's such great storytelling
aids, they're props,
I guess.
In-game props. They get if you pick up a plastic sword, or if I pick up my prop sword that is a not amazing replica, I feel incredible. I feel like I want to do things and throw things around, and I that immediately immerses you. And like when you put on a costume, it's kind of the same thing. So I've literally just typed a couple in chat because I love making stupid magic items for people. So I've had the Shield of Brewing, where you just place it face down on a flat surface and it just makes 4 cups of tea. You could add that mechanically, which I have done, but I bring these into different campaigns. Like I don't just have recurring NPCs. I'll have recurring dumb magic items. Code of Many Sides is also just a wonderful homebrew that I've picked up on the internet. Search the D100 table. It's great. Favorite is the coat of arms. The back side of the coat that the wearer has is just arms from the elbow. And it's just weird, creepy, fun. It's just but then there's also like shark fur, like shark skin, or just other random things that may prove useful circumstantially. I know that the arms had to like hold them onto the outside of a wagon, and
that's cool.
And they get creative, and they use what you give them. So
Yeah.
I'm loving that. I'm
And
loving
that's
that.
it. It's giving people something that might seem innocuous or not to have immediate relevance.
Yeah.
And then they use it for something. Like, I'm waiting for the day that somebody uses a cloak of billowing in a really clutch moment.
Yeah.
And just ask the cheeky question, oh, can I have an advantage on this, charisma check or something? Like, contextually.
Just billows and gets in someone's face and wraps around it.
Yeah.
One shot recently that we had for Halloween, so there was definitely a kind of more spooky kind of feel to it. But they were about, I think they're 7th level, and they each had, a particular build and some particular items and of course some tragic backstory or something. But I made sure that no matter what powerful key signature item they had, I gave them like a dumb magic item as well, or something just silly, innocuous. Like the guy had smoldering armor, and all it did was it just had this little smoldering kind of smoke, and it's like,
was it the rock?
Yeah. Looking up into the distance or something like this.
Oh, God.
And it's like little things like that. Like you said, the ticket of sobriety, I think, is so good that you can't get drunk. Yeah. So it's like,
I love that.
So good.
Yeah, it's almost like, it is these little elevated story moments where it is just like what you guys are creating. There's no like predefined sort of plot or anything as well. I can even think of, yes. Ooh,
I was just going to say, the reason I added that was because they said we want that feeling of horror and ghost story and tension at times, but we don't want to be overloaded with it. We want to have a little bit of humor, and I thought, great, that's
have to. Even mentioned very specifically in the DM's introduction to Curse of Strahd, it does sort of say, don't just double down and barrel into the gothic horror. Don't make it all gloom and doom. There's flashes of like gore and horror and oh my God moments. For the most part, it's just, we just got to get out. Like, what are we just doing? We just got to do the things. Like, just, it's dreary. It's horrible. And there's a fun environment to play in. And then there are moments of absolute hilarity and just unexpected banter and all sorts of good fun that comes from just a D&D group in general. So all of the I was about to say, after all we've said, don't really worry about it because it's all just good fun anyway. But that said, take what you need, leave what you don't. Please leave some comments in that. I mean, Semi, who's in the chat, is actually the person I first gave the Cloak of Many Sides to. It was beaver fur and just any wooden items you were wearing got eaten by the coat. Just like stupid fun shit like that, like it surprises the player, it surprises everyone at the table. It's just good fun shenanigans. And like I know that James, who we had on recently, I gave him the Shield of Brewing, and if you guys have watched that episode or participated in the episode, you would know that he would immediately take something like that and be like, right guys, we're here, it's serious, we're in Strahd's realm, let's all have a cup of tea and just pretend we're back home for a moment or something, right? Like I know he did something like that many times. He used that as like his way to like capture and kind of bring everyone's attention, and it was so wonderful. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Simply for players who maybe don't feel as comfortable getting into the role play without some kind of extra prompt. Because I think that's important as well, is coming up with ways to bring in players to feel comfortable in the game. Because you might have, and I've had this, some very into the role play, very theatrical people. And then you've got people that are quite quiet and they talk about their character in the third person. But it's nice to have little things to keep them engaged, whether it's a campaign, whether it's a one-shot. Or you could just have
find out what your players... Yeah, find out what your players want, and you're going to play with a diverse bunch of people, and people are going to want different things, and that means things can come and go at different times. If you've got a great group synergy, you've set up all the expectations, you've done most of the things or some of the things we've talked about, everyone should at least be on the same page. And then, if they are finding things sort of bogged down in a lot of combat, or they haven't done a lot of combat for a while and they're craving it, make sure that you have an open door with that sort of a thing. And it doesn't even have to be you that says it. If you more feel comfortable saying it to, I mean, I hope everyone feels comfortable to say, speak their voice to the DM and to the group, but, just mention it to someone else who might be more comfortable, and just make sure that you get the experience you want as far as that is possible, because it's not all about one person. The DM has to fundamentally know more about the world and has to be excited and enthusiastic about that, and have intentions and forethought. So you can't just curate things based on what people want specifically, but at the same time, just talk about it. Just find out what you can do in the meantime and move along with it, because it's this ever-evolving thing. A one-shot isn't permanent, neither is a campaign. It just goes for a long period of time. So, yeah, we've...
And try what you want to try. You know, try different things. It's the things that work for us, and people in the chat as well. It seems to have evolved into talking about random magic items, which I'm loving. I feel like that could be a whole episode on its own. Oh, let's do that. Actually, we may have in the chat someone who is an incredible homebrew creator. I think it'd be fun to talk about how items are used. I'm going to write that down. We should have an episode talking about how different items are used.
Yeah, that could be fun. Absolutely. Touching on, big what's the thing? MacGuffins, right? MacGuffins, red herrings, all of these mechanical things. What's the other thing? What's the Chekhov's gun? All of these sorts of things. Like, is it a magic item that you kind of half sort of forgot about? Because that's another thing we're all probably guilty of. I think we've talked about is just giving away a bracelet that has a weird looking jewel on it or something, and then they go, oh, and I've got this thing, and then you go, oh yeah, no, that's interesting. I always ask people what they have on their character sheets. With D&D Beyond, it's so wonderful that I can just actually see what their inventory holds, and I would also be the GM who like to take people's character sheets and keep onto them. I said, I'll make you guys photocopies. That's fine, you can have whatever, or can I photocopy it, bring it back, just so I have at least a save point somewhere. Because people write the darndest things. It was so surreal having the Curse of Strahd group 2 years after we last played pull out their old character sheets. And there was all of these questions when we sat down. There were so many things of I have this weird amulet, I have a apricot Danish, I have this. And it was just so much fun.
Danish.
It's a whole thing that we did.
I saw something someone shared in some chat I was in. They had a jar of bees.
A jar of bees. Absolutely. I have the spicy jar in my Spelljammer campaign. It's just a jar of chilies, but they're magic. And I think I only decided they were magic afterward, when they actually started to engage. They just kind of pocketed it, and then they were like, oh, I want to look at the jar of chilies. And I was like, well, you eat one. What does it do? Fire breath.
And that's as well. Yeah. We can suddenly turn these mundane items into magic items. The joy of being a DM.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's actually
it's the perfect way to create engagement.
We talked about, and also turning items that is in their sheet as well. It's like you said about rewarding players, and sometimes it's also when you've got a player who's clearly keen to be involved and is you want to be able to add something to the arc of the story, and it's you don't want to override one person's story for the whole campaign with everyone, so you try to balance things. But sometimes it's nice to be able to build on something. And there was one of our games, the character was found in a forest by her adoptive parents, and she was wearing this kind of slightly broken crown that was of ivy, I think, or thorns or something like this, and it had a little break in it or something there. It's become kind of a big, powerful thing that has grown in power over time, and it is very much linked to her story and why she was in the forest, which is starting to become a thing. And it was just so small to start with, and it was just an offhand thing. And I thought, let's build on that. And it's particularly because this player kept doing this, and I've been trying to do that with all the players because of the things that they have. Awesome. It's so fun. It's yeah, and it's our story then. It's something that we're all creating. Yeah,
it's magical.
We could talk about this for hours, but we are running out of time.
Kind of, unfortunately. Thank you, everyone, so much for all the chats. Thank you so much for the donos. It's been absolutely wonderful. You guys are incredible. Please, if you guys want to, perfect opportunity. Let's pitch it out. If you guys want to talk about anything, like if there's anything that we haven't yet touched on, we really do want to hear from you guys, because we want to make sure that we're tapped into the community and what they're struggling with, and we also want to hear your successes. It's not just all about, you know, trying to solve the greater problems. We just want to make sure that people have the resources they need, I guess. So yeah, this has been amazing. I'm gonna check out chat after this because I haven't been able to pay attention for the first time, which is so cool.
Quinn's got a great question about magic items that grow and evolve with the player, and I think that's something that we should talk about. And I think I'm liking the idea of an episode where we talk about items and how they can be used, and I think that's something that we should probably incorporate into
sentient items. Like, I love me a sentient item.
I've got a sentient cloak on my level 20 paladin that I've just created.
Sick.
Yeah.
I just loved having an excuse to play two voices as a Warforged, because you can have
Oh, that's cool.
Oh my god, the name escapes me, but you can have this thing that gets attached to you, and my default when I play Warforged is it's in my eye, and it's like a Jarvis, and they have incredible knowledge. You can add languages, you have increased wisdom and like perception checks and stuff, but they also are sentient and have their own entire personalities, so it's like this upgrade. It's this ancient thing that's from the time where the machines that were built that create the Warforged, like we've discovered these Eldritch machines that create the Warforged. The docent. Thank you, Semi. He knows. Semi knows because he played a Warforged and I gave him one. And as a player, I love it as an excuse to have two voices.
So I think there is so much that we could do. Sorry, I know you can hear Dean Dog in the background. He is upset about something.
Yes, we're wrapped up. We're happening. Well, that's it. We'll talk about that for sure, but for now, I think that's all we unfortunately have. I'm super keen for next week though, because last week we talked about gathering a bunch of people together. This week we're talking about curating the experience you want, and I've been so fortunate to be introduced to a wonderful human being by the name of Adam, and Adam has designed the game he wanted to play. He has an incredible story of how he woke up in the middle of the night and had an epiphany and just started writing mechanics. So we're going to talk about the board game he created, because it is a beautifully engineered classic dungeon crawl. It's been 3 years in development, and we're just play testing it now, me and my groups. So there's a Kickstarter coming, and I'm sure he will explain all and more next week. But that's what I'm keen to talk about.
But what else is exciting happening on Sunday?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
What's that's coming?
Welcome, everyone.
An adventure.
Madness, that is a new AI adventure.
Yeah.
With our AI GM. I'm so sorry about Dean Dog.
Don't
he has
worry about
opinions, but it is so
your
exciting. We're going to play. What time are we playing this game?
It's going to be 1 p.m. Is that correct? 1 p.m. 5th of November.
Eastern Daylight Saving Time.
Absolutely. Right. Yes.
1 p.m. this Sunday. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I
might chuck it in the old Twitch schedule. That might just make it easy for everyone.
There's check it out us on Facebook tomorrow. There'll be something about it at 11 a.m. That'll be popping in. So check that out. You'll have a bit of a preview, and I can't wait. It's just to be able to play a game again. It'll be a bit of fun. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
I'm super looking forward to it. We're going to do a slightly different setting. We're going to do the gunpowder, treason, and plot. Something sort of espionage, sort of intrigue. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really interesting, and I'm super keen to play a sleuth. Yeah. A spy.
And an assassin. I'm super keen to play my character.
Have you worked out
what it's going to be? Oh, well, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it when we get there. Who wants to kill the mystery? But we should. I'm going to recommend we raid a lovely channel, Coffee Cat, who is playing Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, cool!
Talking about different games. Yeah. So that's
speaking of wonderful, unique systems that do a very, very specific type of storytelling. Vampire is an incredibly unique world just on its own, really. So if you guys want to try something new and spicy, check that out. Very cool.
But yes, we love you all.
We sure do.
Thank you
so much for tuning in, everyone.
Yeah.
This has been The Social Pillar.
Yeah.
This has been the Social Pillar with elements of chaos thrown in our own
Always.
jar of spiciness.
As always. Yes. All right, Spicy Jar. Bless everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Mwah. See you all
See you
soon.
guys.